92.1 WROU, Dayton's R&B leader, but today it is a day of discussion. And we are discussing some things that make you cry at night, that make you say, really, we're still having these same conversations. And it makes you think, how can I be a part of moving my portion of the movement forward? And I have the pleasure of chatting with, when I call her a sister friend, and she's not just a sister friend to me, but a sister friend to the city, because she's willing, available, and very present in the moment to do the work. And I want to welcome to the broadcast Mayor Mary McDonald, City of Trotwood, Ohio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Faith.
Well, it's a pleasure. I wish it was under better circumstances, but you and I have had several conversations about the George Floyd murder. We have talked about it. We've been on overload on TV, video, internet. It has absolutely filled us in a way that, from your vantage point as a city official, you viewed it as a city official. But then the thing that just drew me into you is when you said, I viewed it as a mother. And when that man called out for his mother, he spoke to the soul of every Black mother in this world. It was too much.
Absolutely, Faith. Absolutely. You know, when you think of his last words and you're thinking as a mother, your child calling you, there's nothing that any mother wouldn't do to get to their child if that child is in some kind of a danger.
That's right.
And to see something like that happen, I tell you, the challenge for all of us is, what do we do? What do we do with all of this energy after having experienced what we experienced? How do we deal with that? And how do we move forward?
And the hard part for me, I'm a mother, and but I'm also an on-air personality and a communicator, and I have to speak to my audience from a very real place, but also from a very honest place, but then also understanding I have to communicate what is going on, how I feel about it, and entertain how they feel about it, and understand we're not all the same people. We're not all from the same background, and finding the right voice to do that. And you, as a city official, I know that has been something that you have worked hard to do.
Absolutely. What I know is the issue around race is very uncomfortable for many people. But there is a special piece that works in my life that makes it a little bit easier for me. Number one, I accept that I'm a child of God, and that I mean, I get all of the rights and privileges as anybody else out there,
Yes.
and I walk in that. So by doing that, it doesn't bother me as much. But do I feel when I walk in a room and people don't look like me, that they feel or give off a certain kind of vibe? Yeah, I experience it all the time. But it's not going to stop me from walking in, number one, the authority that the people of the city of Trotwood have given me, but
Okay.
also in that oneness with our creator. And I think that is a real important piece as we move forward to how we get to reconciliation and how we move ourselves forward
Mhm.
past this.
One of the points that we talked about before we got on the air was the fact that we have to be accountable for ourselves first. And that
Yes.
would be within our community. You have been labeled lovingly the community mayor, because we may see you anywhere helping with any cause,
The
with any,
people's mayor.
the people's mayor.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. With any cause, with any organization, with any neighborhood, with any nationality. And that speaks to the fact that community is transparent. Community shouldn't have to have a specific color, but when we want our community to flourish, we have to get back and build that community. And that's something that you have been able to do consistently. And with this seems like just another opportunity for you to continue to build in our community.
It certainly does. It's something that we do every day simply because, number one, we've taken responsibility for ourselves in our community. We were the community that one time people counted out,
Yeah,
and we were about to go bankrupt. We were about to have a number of things happen here that are no longer on the table. So, by taking our own personal responsibility, we knew we had to educate ourselves. We had to make sure that we made the kind of friends that we needed to make to be able to move ourselves forward. And all of those have come to bear in where we find ourselves today, in a community that feels the hurt, but they also feel that when they look to their leadership, that their leadership is going to be right there. I've
that's right.
often felt as a leader, you have to be out there. You have to be with people before you need them. And
That's right.
oftentimes I see in politics, people come every 4 years, but you can see me any and every day. I'm very present, with social media, and I try to ask the kind of questions that I think are going to help me stay with the pulse of the people. And that's really what the key is. You need to know the people in your land, and I
That's
know the
right.
people in my land.
That's right. Let's talk about the pulse of the community right now. You are front and center of peace walks, and and it was a march, but I call it a peace walk because it
Yes.
was the most peaceful demonstration that happened in Montgomery County in the last 14 days. One of the models that other neighborhoods and neighboring counties are using in order to do theirs. What is the temperature of the community right now from your vantage point?
After Saturday, that was really what let me know where we were. Our citizens showed out. There were hundreds of people that showed up into the communities, including the Sisters of the Precious Blood.
Right,
So we had people that came from everywhere. They didn't necessarily need a special invite. We had the press conference. They knew we were having the event, and they literally came out. Even other communities, they chose to come out, and they said that they wanted to be a part of what was happening here in Trotwood because they knew that it was going to be safe, and they knew that they were going to be hearing things that were supportive of not only the challenge that we were facing of racism, but also the recognition that this is not necessarily all police officers, but it is a culture that needs to be addressed. And it
right.
was a balanced event. And I think that was really what people are looking for, because while we have so much energy and so much passion in things right now, if we don't come up systematically with a platform or how we're going to use that energy to move our communities forward, all we'll have is a lot of what we did in terms of a march. And I want to use the time and energy that we have in our community wisely. So we made sure that we talked about people being registered to vote. We made sure that we helped them get registered to vote. We also made sure that we had people fill out the US Census. We wanted to be smart about the time people came together. And it really did work out, and folks were helped and happy that they had the opportunity to get some of their questions asked around both of those areas.
One of the biggest things that everybody is saying with all this energy we have,
Mhm.
people have to vote. People have to vote. They have to
Yes,
hold our community accountable for getting registered to vote, for finding our way to empower ourselves. We are the help
yes,
we're waiting on.
exactly. Voting is your reasonable service for being here.
Yes,
That's what I call it. You're 18, that's your reasonable service. Didn't cost you anything. But it costs you everything when you don't use it. And we need right now each and every young person, 18 years or older, to be registered to vote, to look and understand who you are voting for. Make sure that you're not just, this is a name that I heard forever and I'm going to put them back in, because sometimes some of those folks are the very people that are holding you back.
yes,
So they need to be educated. They need to take time to go to these community forums. People put these on and they really expect people to turn out. Sometimes people turn out, sometimes they don't. But it's really done for you to have that intimate time to get to know who it is you have an opportunity to put in place to represent you. Make sure that those values are values that you can hold on to, and you can say that that person understands your heartbeat, because that's what the kind of energy that I like to spend my time with. You can know clearly how I feel. I'm not a complicated person. I will give you just what is in my heart. And you know what? And I also leave room to learn. I leave
right.
room for people to share with me things that could possibly change my view and change my vision. I'm not so hard and fast that I can't be changed, but it needs to make sense. It needs to be balanced, and it needs to be for all. Because I often hear us and them and all that kind of stuff. My
Right.
community is diverse. We're probably about 68% African American. However, for the very first time in a number of years, when I ran for office first to be mayor, I went out into those areas that were not necessarily the party that I was affiliated with. And
Yes.
those individuals who usually pay the most taxes out here said, we finally feel like we're a part of the city. Now they
Wow.
contact me if they have concerns or they have things that they need, or I need to come out there. I might come out there in my heels. And I'm talking about in my more rural area,
That's
where the
right.
farmers
The
are. But
farmland.
when I
Absolutely.
go out there and I spend time talking with them, they hear my heart. They hear that I care about what they care about. And I think that's what our people are crying out for. And often those people don't look like me.
That's right.
So it's about building of trust. It's about making sure that the people who you say you want to represent, you're actually showing them your heart and being open and willing to get that feel for what it is that they want and they need.
Well, let's talk about that. There are so many demands being made. There are so many organizations that have said somebody needs to do something. But where we
Exactly.
are finding ourselves is with this huge momentum that is moving. And we have got to get everybody engaged in the battlefield in order to continue the momentum and hold ourselves accountable and hold the individuals of whom we are making the demands accountable based on the needs, based on the desires, based on the hard, fast facts of what we know. Racism exists, inequality exists. George Floyd is dead, and we know he's not the first to die in police custody at the hands
Right.
of the police. In addition to that, with every mother who was watching that funeral or the memorial service or any of the marches, should be moved to a place of, I've got to do something, whatever your little bit
Yeah.
is, to do
Yes.
something to make this a better situation for our children. So if you and I had an opportunity, which we do right now, to talk to the mothers of our community, to empower them in a way to move to action or call them to action, what could we say?
I think the first conversation is you're going to have to sit down and talk to our children, our young
Yeah,
people. They're going to have to understand the world that we're in right now and how they can make a difference. They're going to have to deal with the uncomfortable feeling of having to share with them that it is a world that unfortunately does look at you as the color of your skin. But you're
right.
also going to have that feeling of knowing that I still have an opportunity to have my part and have my voice heard in this country. So it's a balancing act of not causing them to have fear, but having them know that these young people know that they have a place in this country and that the United States of America is theirs as much as it is anyone else's. And that's another piece that I wear proudly. I am an American. I'm an
Yeah,
African American, but I am an American, and I take on every single right that this country has afforded me under that flag. And when you buy into that and you're talking to people with that, and you're not necessarily saying, I want to be something different and an American, I'm all in
right.
about being an American. We have to own our part in it. And then we have to be at the table. We have to be willing
Yes,
to go to meetings. We have to be willing to share with people what it is that we would like to see happen. And it can't be a rule that's made just for you and not necessarily for anybody, for someone else,
right.
or against someone else. We've got to really work at balancing this thing out and have a heart to really want to have that oneness that it takes to be necessary to be the strong country that we want it to be.
And when we talk about these mothers and fathers and grandmothers having to have these tough conversations, these conversations have to happen now. Now, they
They
can't be
do.
have they can't have them after another child is dead, after another young
Exactly.
person dies in custody. These conversations cannot happen after you see something else so traumatic happen
Right.
on television before our
Right.
very eyes. It
Right.
has to happen now. And that
Absolutely.
conversation is going to be uncomfortable. It is definitely going to be uncomfortable. I have a 19-year-old son and a 31-year-old son. and a 17-year-old daughter. Within as much, these conversations have to happen because their friends don't look like what our friends looked like when we were kids because of redlining and African Americans traditionally gravitating to live in the same communities. So your friends were right down the street or right next door. Ideally now, because children are so diverse and their thinking is so advanced, we have to get them to a place to be able to apply that diversity. And what I mean by applying the diversity is being able to open your mind to different cultures, but don't be ashamed of your own culture. And you shouldn't be
So
denied
true.
life because of it.
Yes, exactly. I think being willing and putting themselves out to be able to share that openness that says my presence and my input is just as important as anyone else. That's what we need our young people to know and to do. We're calling them forth right now as a result of where we are in this culture and this particular climate right now. And it is a great time for them. It is a huge time for them because what they've got now is an all out look at all of America and America looking at them. And
Yes,
that is what I think is so profound about the time right now. I think what's so beautiful when I see my black friends and my white friends and everybody out here together, and Asians and Hispanics all coming together saying, we want this America that we've been sold is available. Because when we think about all these people that come from other places, they bought into an idea and they bought
yes,
into a dream. They bought into, if I get to America, I'm going to be able to do X and Y. And the only people were there, maybe a few others that didn't come here under that were slaves and
that's
African
right.
Americans. And I
That's
think
right.
as we have become leaders as having been people who came to a land that we didn't ask to come to, but having been here and having contributed here and having built this America, we're now saying that we want our piece of that America. We want to live that out, and we want to live that out in the freedom of knowing that we're going to be safe, that our young men are going to be safe.
Yes, yes. And I think as a mother, what I'm feeling right now is I'm in a difficult place. I'm in a very difficult place, and difficult in the fact that I have to raise black sons differently than anybody else in the world. When they drive the car, their driver's license, registration, and insurance card are in the visor above their head so that when their hands are raised, they can simply take the information and hand it right out the window to the officer. Why?
Right.
In addition to that, my son's cell phone cases, they're hot pink and bright orange and lime green. Why? So it doesn't look like a gun in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah. We've
Unfair.
got those. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. But I tell you, as a mayor who has a police department underneath me, my goal in that area is to make sure that there's some sensitivity to the
Yeah.
fears that they have. I brought my granddaughter out to the march, both my granddaughters here on last weekend. And my daughter, she warned me before she brought the kids over, and she says, Mom, she says, the girls are coming. She says, but I want you to know, Sydney says she's afraid of the police.
Yeah. That's where they
That
are
broke
right
my
now.
It broke my heart because I'm walking around with them every day.
Yes.
Okay. And I see who they are as a people. So I made sure that she had an opportunity to get up close and personal with them, with SWAT and everybody else that was here. But
Sure.
every kid needs that example. So I've already talked to my city manager about creating opportunities for our young people to better know the police, but also for our police to better know these kids so that when they look on at these young black boys and young black girls, what
Mhm.
they see is their own child.
That's
And
right.
that's what it is that I want them to see. And that way, when you stop them in the car, you think about somebody stopping your child in the car.
Yes.
I
The
want
sheer
those kinds of
fear.
thoughts to the fear. I will tell you the fear that I've had. Let me tell you something
Oh,
that recently happened to me recently. I was driving a little bit too fast in one of our neighboring municipalities, and the police pulled me over. Now I haven't had a ticket since my daughter was born. She's 34 years old. He
wow.
pulls me over. I was on my way to the doctor, and I thought, I got to get here fast. And so he took my license, got back to his car, and he stayed so long. I got out of my car, and I went back to him. And I'm gonna tell you what, he's a young guy. He was so scared. He said, "Lady, get back in the car.
Yeah.
But I was thinking to myself, the privilege that I have had
Yes.
by being around police officers, and I didn't have the fear. But I
Yes.
realized at that moment, sometimes these officers are more afraid than we are in the car trying to do the job. And I do
Afraid
believe,
and intimidated. And
okay,
and there comes a time where, and I'll use this analogy. If I was afraid of cutting meat,
hmm
I have no business being a butcher by profession.
hmm hmm
If I had a
hmm
fear of speaking publicly, I have no reason being an on-air personality.
hmm
If you are easily intimidated, or you harbor fear, if you
hmm
harbor hate, if you
that's right.
harbor a given distrust in your heart and your spirit, regardless if you are physically able to do a job, you should not be a
hmm
police officer. There are
Exactly.
certain things that you have to attest to when you say, charge it to my head, not to my heart. No, we're charging it to your head and your heart and your actions. You did
Right.
what you did. Whether you did it out of fear, that's not the job for you. But we can't
hmm
determine that it's not the job for you after you've already killed somebody because you were scared. After you already
Exactly.
killed
Well, I would,
somebody because of how you feel on the inside about that person as a race, because you don't even know them, from
yeah,
stopping
yeah,
them. And that
yeah,
is an accountability that now we have to bring to our police departments and ask,
exactly.
what is the process when you hire them? Are they mentally evaluated? On what point scale are they evaluated? More importantly, are they psychologically challenged more than just at the hiring process? How
Right.
often
During,
do you talk to, because
you
they
need
they
those
have a
high
tough job.
standards.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And they have a
you
tough
need high
job. I am
standards.
not saying
Right.
I could not be a police officer. I'm a
hmm
chicken. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I be done shot up everybody. I'm scary like that. That's why that's not my job. But the ultimate understanding of a police officer's mind, once he's been on the job 6, 9, 12 months, is there a reevaluation? Is there a PTSD test that
Mhm.
you do? Is there someone they go and talk to and download this information, because they see a lot? They engage in a
Right.
lot. And these are just
Right.
some of the policies and thoughts that we as mothers are now having
Right.
to have. Who do I tell? Who's got the idea sheet? Who's keeping the idea sheet for us to go forward and ask these things and demand these things, if you will?
Sure. And many of these standards are already in place. The city of Trotwood is a CALEA certified city, where we engage on a national level with this organization, that almost every move that any police officer or any encounter any police officer has is documented, is investigated, is looked at. We can't keep our certification if people are outside of the standard that's set by CALEA, which is extremely high, which is one of the reasons why a lot of municipalities do not have it. But there are agencies out here that people can become a part of if they want to be that better or that stellar police department. We wanted that. And we've had it for a number of years, probably 15, 16 years. And we've had people that have come in, and if they didn't meet those standards, they were right back out the door. We
Wow.
handle what's necessary within our community. And we're not going to have people here in the city of Trotwood that are not going to be respecting our citizens.
Yeah,
If you're
that's
not
important.
respecting our citizens, it gets to our office or it gets to the chief, they're going to be out of here, because we can't afford it. We are a primarily African American community, and the needs of our citizens must be met. But we also require that they're met with dignity, honor, and respect.
Everything about what you just said is so encouraging, and it is so exhilarating, because the things I'm saying we should have, Trotwood's already got it.
We have
Again,
it.
Trotwood is the model. Again, Trotwood is the
Yeah.
model.
Yeah.
Ideally,
Oh,
when we look at your community, we see police that look like the citizens.
mhm.
I've been to several events where the community knows the police officers. The
Yeah.
police officers know some of the children by name. The national night out that you guys have put on for years, One of
Yes.
the wonderful things about it is I love the way little Black children are interacting with the policemen and the firemen and the city officials. If other communities adopted more of that, more than just on the national night out, but at an opportunity so that children see the officer in their school reading books, see the
Right.
officer at the ice cream social, doing the electric slide. I'm not saying
Hmm.
that that is going to take away from the bad things that they already know, but they can also be introduced to a better way of respecting a police officer or getting to know a police officer and eliminating a lot of the fear they both have when they come in contact with one another.
That's what's necessary. We're going to, again, everybody has to come out of their uh, comfort zone and do what's necessary to make sure that these young people have the experience of the police officer being their friend. I know when I was growing up, that was what we were always taught. And over the years, I watched things change. But also, police officers have to serve from a capacity of knowing that they signed on to be the servant and that they can't
That's the
use muscle
truth.
and intimidation and all of that kind of stuff. They said they wanted to be a peacekeeper, not a peace breaker. And I think when you see a few of these bad actors out here, and you continue to see it over and over again in the media, it makes you believe that more of them are out here than the others. And I will tell you categorically that that is not true. But those bad actors that influence those folks who are standing by and possibly allowing certain things to happen and not speaking up to it, and the culture that has to be dealt with, even in dealing with that, those are the issues and the policies that have to be changed within organizations, because we do know that there is a blue wall, and that wall is alive and well. And I see some of the pushback happening as I listen to some of the, the chiefs and the police departments and people saying what they're not going to do. Well, you know what? That wall is what we're going to have to chip at.
Yes,
And those things are the places where we have to deal. We have to deal with our judges, because those are the individuals who, at the end of the day will say whether or not somebody is going to go to jail and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have to make sure that they hear the hearts of the people as well.
yes, yes,
Because when you talk about going after a police officer for any kind of a thing, you have to really have all your facts in place and making sure that every concern has been answered. Because typically, when it gets down to the courts and things like that, that's where you start to have your problem. That's
that's
why
where the
we've seen
breakdown
video in
comes.
the past. Yeah, we've seen the video in the past, but end up people getting off. And it's like, did they see the same thing we saw?
Well, and I think there
You
is a
know?
process to that. There is an organizational process to that. And I'm
Hmm.
glad you went to that aspect of it, because one of the things that we are seeing, and we saw this in Cincinnati with the Ray Tenzing case, was you find prosecutors overcharging or charging
Hmm.
the defendant in a way that the jury has no choice but
But to
to
let them,
acquit, because based on the letter of the law,
yeah,
based on
yeah,
the letter of the law, the way this individual was charged, we cannot find him guilty based on what you charged him with. And when you
right.
find that happening and you get the response, and if you can't see me, it's the shrug of the shoulders, you get the Kanye shrug after we saw what you saw. How can you?
Exactly.
And the jurors have said it in more than one case. Based on what he was charged with and based on the letter of the law, we could not find him guilty. So, in addition to the conversations about judges, the
Mhm.
conversation about prosecutors, the conversation about ill will police officers, all of those people have to be taken to task on what their part has been in the
Absolutely.
systematic discrimination in the courtroom, where they then put the victim on trial. It's
That's
too
right.
much.
That's right. See, that's where when we're right now operating in our emotions, we need people operating on those levels. We need people who
Yes.
are looking into prosecutors, looking into judges, and seeing how this happens. Look at how judges get their money. Look how they stay in office. So we need people to look at those things so that they can really understand that there are layers to the reasons why people are not
Absolutely.
charged. And the
and
reason why
and the
there's this
ones that are,
overcharging or
yes,
there's not charge.
yes. And that is something that the average person just doesn't know, or even
Exactly.
know to dig deep enough to find out. Based on what he charged him with, you can't find him guilty based on the way
That's
you
right.
charged him. Or you stack
Yeah.
up a bunch of charges and they say, well, wait a minute, he didn't do that and he didn't, that's not it. And then you end up with either a hung jury or you end up
Hmm.
with a total acquittal. And where we are in our nation right now is a time of change. And from a market that here in the Midwest, we have an opportunity to, again, be a model to others around us. We have an opportunity to really be the leader in the forefront of the state, to do
Yes.
the right things. That's all. We're not asking for anything special. We're asking for you to do the right thing. And those conversations are not going to be popular. Those
No.
conversations are not going to be easy to have. And you're going to get a lot of hangups and a lot of doors closed in your face. There's going to be a lot of pushback because it's
Right.
been status quo. It's been the good old boys network. It's been
Right.
a glass ceiling. But for us, it wasn't a glass ceiling. It was shackles and chains. Big difference.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
big difference.
I think that's
And
that's the cry. That's what's happening now. That's the cry in the community because people have had all of that. And what they're looking for is they're looking for results. They're looking
yes,
for things to be dealt with. They're looking to feel better about being an American. And I think it had to happen when this conversation opened, and it had to happen by other people who didn't look like us.
yes.
Because I've told people the work that needs to be done now, we've told this story 1,000 times. We
Oh,
cried
yes.
1,000 rivers.
Yes.
We, the people who don't look like us, to start speaking up in high places and saying that this is not America. This is not the America I want for my children. Because that's when change actually happens with this. I've had people ask me, how do white Americans deal with a situation like this? Well, you know what? I can't fix that.
Right.
You're gonna have to go do the work in your home. Just like I've had to keep my son pumped up and knowing that he's a great guy and being
Yes.
safe and doing
Yes.
certain things in my home, you're gonna have that certain conversation in your home. And I think that's where the work is. And when we do that, I believe we can honestly come to the table and have a conversation that talks about, I'm not my ancestors, nor are you yours.
That's
But
right.
as a result of your ancestors, there's a privilege that you wear every day and a privilege that you've had for a number of years that my culture did not have.
That's
And
correct.
then let's talk about how we can build equity, how we can go from here. I
And
think that's the work that's ahead of us.
it's conversations that have to happen. And it's no easy way to start the
No.
conversation. It's no easy way to really kind of fight your way through it. But I
Mhm.
encourage people that are having the conversation, I want you to do it in honesty,
Yeah.
from a place of the understanding that the person you're talking to really, truly may not get it.
Yeah.
And take your time with it. The emotion and the passion that we put into explaining our situation, explaining our hurt, explaining our racial disparities, the time that we put into explaining that, we get tired of apologizing for being Black. And then you
Yeah.
have to understand that people find offense with you when you don't like that, they don't like that you're Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ideally, my neighbor, we've lived in our community for 6 years now. And I've shared this several times, and people are like, you cannot be telling the truth. Yeah, I am. 6 years. She's a Caucasian lady, beautiful home, lovely kids. I've met her children because they ride bikes up and down the street. And she saw me out in the driveway, and she has never spoken to me. Never. And I'm from the South. I'll throw my hand up. I'm going to wave if I don't say anything. I'll wave. She won't wave back. She'll turn her head like she didn't see me. Okay, well, that you can only do that so many times.
Right.
Ideally, she walked up the walkway and she said, "Excuse me." I thought maybe she had my newspaper or the mail or something. She said, "Excuse me. Um, can I ask you something? You seem so nice." How? You've never spoken to me. You've never heard the sound of my voice. How? You've never met me. She realized I live where I live because we can afford to live there. Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I have amazing children. But number three, I go to work every day,
Mhm.
every single day. So when she said, "You look nice," she looks at the outer. She had no idea who I am, what I do. She finally
Mhm.
said, with everything that's going on in the nation right now, and these are her exact words, "What exactly is it that y'all want?"
Mhm.
I was taken aback. I was
Mhm.
taken aback, but my response was swift. I said, "One nation under God, indivisible,
Yeah.
with liberty
With
and
liberty and
justice for
for
all."
all.
We've been
Yes.
pledging it since preschool. Now
Yep.
it's time for the nation to pay up. We're not
Yes.
asking for anything extra. With liberty, that means move about, go and do, expand, fly,
Mhm.
whatever I want to do. And
Mhm.
justice. That
Yep.
means if you do something to me, I get justice because you have
Mhm.
wronged me, for all. Black, white, green,
Yes.
purple, red, everybody. So we're at a
Yes.
time now where it is the tipping point. The tipping point. Going forward, how do we harness all this amazing energy? How do we do that with our young people and with people like me, that's willing to do the work, that's willing to have those hard conversations and sit at the table? How do we go forward from here?
I think we continue to educate. We continue to infiltrate. We need to go places that are uncomfortable for us. We need to go into county and city meetings to sit at the table. We need to go to our police department and demand to get to know these people who are representing us. It's not hard to do. We need to invite them into our meetings and our churches and have their voices uh, heard and they hear our voices. And I think if we're willing to do that uncomfortable thing of sitting together, sitting down, being honest in a very, very transparent way, I believe there's an opportunity. Now, are we going to get everyone? No, we are not.
Right.
Because there are going to be some people that are not going to be willing to feel that initial cut.
Sure, sure.
But it is so necessary for us to become that one nation that we're talking about and people that have the true desire. And I think that there are more people with that desire now. We have the opportunity. And I take our role on the local level because of some things that I'm seeing that are happening on the national level. I'm taking it so much more seriously because we look for policies and things to be pushed down from a higher place so that we
That's right.
simply implement. It is necessary now for mayors to be mayors, council members to be council members, governors to be governors. We're going to have to do this thing until people learn at a higher level that the decisions that are being made, that the positions that are being taken, that the fact that the left is fighting with the right, the people are suffering,
Yes.
the people are hurting, and the people are hurting for leadership. And
Yes.
they have to see that leadership boots on the ground with them right now. Because when you add that COVID-19 with this,
Oh,
what
wow.
I saw was the opportunity for a perfect storm. These people have
And
been
yeah,
locked up and told to stay in their house. You can't come out. And then you sitting in your house and you look and you see something like this happen. There's a no
unbelievable.
go. You can't go back. You can't go back. You'll never be the same again. And that's what you see. And after engaging a lot of young people, they're not the young people that we were. They're not the Martin Luther King
No,
people. Let's walk in peace. These
no.
kids are willing to have all out war on this soil.
Yes.
And that's a challenge right now because what I've shared with a number of them is yes, you need all that passion and you need all that energy. I need you to have it, but you need my wisdom and
Yes.
you need to know some years of how we got to where we are
That's right.
so that we can help you make these next moves because this is going to be the world that we're leaving you.
That's right.
But you got to be able to respect what we did from the past. I was on something very recently, and the young people were talking about passive. We were passive. That wasn't passive.
No, no.
No, what it was strategy
Yes.
to keep us number one alive and to
Number
be able to make a
one.
point.
Yes.
Exactly. They want to stay alive, but we want to make that point. And so for our young people today, we want them to stay alive as they go through this. We want them to understand that we know the passion that you feel, because we felt it. We've seen people being killed over the many of years.
That's right.
But we want that stuff to stop, because we want to have the best quality individuals as police officers. And if I may, I like to say we need African Americans to be willing to be police officers. It
That's
is an
right.
honorable position.
That's
Many of
right.
them do not, and they say, oh, they don't want us. Well, guess what? Here's what you need to do. You need to start very early thinking about this, because you need to not get in certain kind of trouble that will keep you from ever being a police officer.
Say it
You
again.
need to be able to pass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to be able to pass a drug test. You need to be able to do certain things so that your life is clean and
That's
you can
fair.
take on this high level that you want exemplified over your life today. You need to be that person.
That's fair.
And that
That is
means
that's the
that's where this
accountability.
has to start.
Well, and
Yes.
that's the accountability that we're talking about. We hold the officers to a higher level, and
Yeah.
they should behave that way. We are not saying they are all thugs. We are not saying they are all murderers. We're not saying that they're
Mhm.
all abusers. That is in no way what any of this is about.
No,
It
not
is
at all.
about, in a big way, a day of discussion about feelings, about
Yes.
emotions, about thoughts, about next steps, about family, about community, and
Yes.
also about accountability. And when we talk
Exactly.
about our community, what are we doing in our community that will allow us to draw ourselves right where we need to be? Right where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Because here's one thing, we've said this 1,000 years in the African American community: you cannot sweep around somebody else's front door when your own front door has stacks of trash.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I
And
think the
I've heard,
I think
yeah,
the Williams brothers said it: sweep around your
yes,
own
your
front
own
door.
front door. Exactly.
And our
Absolutely.
accountability
And I've
starts
also
with
had,
us.
yeah, exactly. I've also had, some white friends and listened even into the media say, if Black Lives Matter, well, then what's happening within the Black community? The results of racism, the
Yeah.
results of what happens when people start preying on each other.
Yes.
I equated it to a friend the other day. It's kind of like the woman who is dealing with the man who's beating her, but she stays with him,
Yes.
because there is a conditioning that happens as a
Yes.
result of this.
Yes.
And you can't blame the victim. You can't blame the victim for what the perpetrator has done.
And
And
it
we're
has
going to
been
have to be
done.
willing.
And the
Exactly.
crimes that have been perpetrated on a people for
Yes.
400 years.
Yes.
I was born in 69. Martin Luther King was killed in 68 for marching and trying to get a resolution for the exact same thing that I am sitting here talking to you about right now. That's
And it's amazing.
51 years.
Yeah. It's amazing. It is amazing that we're still having this. But you know what? I think there's not been a time like this. And it is such an opportunity
Yes.
if we start turning that page to where do we go after the march? Because we have got to have a song after the march that
Yes.
says, not only, because I've even said to myself, and it might sound terrible, but I've got to say it. I can't sing "We Shall Overcome Someday" no more. I can't, because I know for a fact that we've got the work, we've got to put in the work, we've got to do the work, and we've got to say we've overcome.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
we need to have overcome.
There has to be a song for this movement, the way
Yes.
Marvin Gaye had a song for the movement of
What's
this.
going on?
What's going
Mhm,
on? We have
mhm.
got to have an energetic introjection for this
Yes.
movement. We
Yes.
have come so far. And to see our young people, old as well, get into the streets all around the world. We're all not crazy. We
Yeah.
saw what happened, but
Yeah.
the anger that we're feeling and it's welling up from a deep place is because
Mhm.
that's not the first time we saw that happen.
That's
George
right. Not
Floyd
the
was not
first,
the
not the
first.
second.
No,
It happens so many times.
no.
And
Yes,
again, we at the highest level, the leadership should be uniting.
yes,
The leadership should be talking to people in ways that bring us together and not tear us apart. And until, again, we see that at the highest levels, we're going to have to do that work down here, boots on the ground,
that's
to
right.
make sure it happens. And you know what? I'm up for it. And I'm sure there are many,
Yeah.
many other mayors and other council members and people who are willing to do this. You know, we have a governor that's really taken on a level of leadership throughout
Yes.
this country because he has spoken up about a number of things that needed to be addressed. And I think it's going to take us, folks that are the closest to the people, because when
Absolutely.
you get way up high, you forget about the people because you got a whole
Absolutely.
lot of guards and people around you,
And
and
we
you just
talked
don't.
about that. We talked about from the
Exactly.
50,000 feet perspective all the way
Yes,
down to the 5 feet perspective.
that's
This
right.
and that's really called getting close up on the problem. And
Yes,
we are as close to this problem as I really want to be.
yes.
I don't want to get any closer to it because as a mother, I'm watching it, I'm seeing it, I'm digesting it. As a communicator and a person in the media, I'm watching it and having to digest it and then disseminate it to our audience.
Hmm.
It's a hard time, but it's
Yeah,
also a time that we are required to do something. You can't sit this
absolutely.
one out.
That's right. Nobody can sit this out. And you know what? I
Nobody.
think with this COVID-19, God set us all down. And He's
Yes.
basically given us the time to decide what you're going to do. I
Yes.
gave you this world. I gave you this world to be a better place. What are you going to do? And I am so proud to see Americans standing up and standing up together. Young, old, black, white, Asian,
Yes.
Hispanics. I am
Across
so
color
proud of
lines.
who we are.
Across color
Because
lines.
yeah, the other day I was wondering, what of those children that were kept in those encampments?
Where
Are
are
those
they?
where are they with all of this going on, with COVID, with all of that? You don't hear anything about it.
No.
And I think that again is the reason why the work has to be closer to the ground. That the leaders, whatever
Mhm.
land God put them over, they're going to have to take care of their people
That's
and
right.
make sure that people are getting fairness and equity. Because we can't all take on the whole world. That's for that high place in DC. And
Yeah.
again, in DC, I'm so saddened by the things that are happening there because the level of fighting and arguing and across the board and the people suffering in the communities that
That's
send people there.
correct.
It's a hurtful time right now. So leadership, wherever it is and wherever it comes up, that's what we're going to have to go after.
And it's going to have to come together. And the
Yes.
only way that we are going to be able to see change across the board for the long term, you have marched down Main Street. You have
Hmm.
marched in the Green. You have marched in Springboro. You have marched in Vandalia. You have marched in Kettering and out in Centerville. March to the polls. Get
Exactly.
get registered to vote and march to the polls. The
Exactly.
responsibility of each one of us is to vote and vote for the individuals that will be fair and just. If you notice, I didn't mention color. I just
That's
said vote for the people who will be fair and just. That is
absolutely.
as simple as it gets.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Faith.
Well,
That's what it's
voter
going to
registration is going to be the next push that has
yes.
got to happen. And it's got to happen in every community, not just
Hmm.
the Black community, not just one or two times down on Courthouse Square. Voter registration needs to be something that when you say hello, hey, how you doing? Are you registered to vote?
Exactly.
It has to be a part of that everyday conversation. It's a
It
necessity.
does.
It's a necessity.
Yeah, it does. Yes, yes, it does. And
Well,
for
it has
us,
been our
again,
pleasure to be able to have this open and very candid conversation with an individual who is the mayor of the city of Trotwood. And when you have an official that is sitting back and watching and being a part of what's going on, you wear two hats. And to be able to hear both of those sides of how you are processing this, how we as a people can come together, police ourselves, hold ourselves accountable, begin to rebuild our communities where we have, for lack of a better term, fallen short of ourselves. We're going to get
absolutely.
there. We are going to
Yes,
get there. We are going to get
yes.
there. Mayor Mary McDonald, City of Trotwood, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, Faith. I am deeply honored and thank you for this opportunity.
It has been my pleasure. Coming up, we are going to be checking back in with one of our national hosts, Nick Cannon, and there will be some additional amazing talent that we're going to be hearing from on a national level. But right here in our own community, we had to have the very candid conversations in an effort to be clear and to be open about what we need in our community. So those of you, stay with us. Coming up, it's 92.1, the day of discussion. There's more coming for you. It's 92.1 WROU.